I like to talk about kind of the global reach, this topic of personal branding. For me over the last several years, I've become, and you've seen it on social media, much more global. And now, I've spoken in 5 continents. And, I have just 2 more to go. And I want to speak in Antarctica, or at least touch a penguin in Antarctica. But just Antarctica and Africa are the only last continents for me to conquer. But what I'm so proud of is the fact that the notion of building your brand is not just a, national U.S. phenomenon. It's not just something tied to social. It's a global, everyone, it touches everyone, at every center of the world, every center of education, every center. So I'd like to help to let people know the expansion, not only the expansion of my brand globally, but also this topic. I've been on CNN, I've been on Fox, I spoke at the Super Bowl, annually, major venues, but this topic it's global.
This is Brent Miller with HED Architects and Engineers. You're listening to EdUp Accelerated Excellence.
The EdUp Accelerated Excellence podcast is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EDUPXE15 off. Learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
Welcome to EdUp Accelerated Excellence, the podcast for the advancement of educational excellence and equity. And our today's guest is Kaplan Mobray, who is a globally recognized inspirational speaker, a personal brand expert, and an author. So, Kaplan, will you give voice to your name and introduce yourself to the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community, and then we'll get right into it.
Hello, EdUp Accelerated Excellence community. I love that. I'm Kaplan Mobray. I'm an award-winning author, speaker, career consultant. I speak a lot on personal branding, leadership excellence, performance excellence, and growing your mindset. And it is an absolute pleasure to be on the podcast with you, wherever you are from around the world listening today.
So, Kaplan, great. Let's talk. I'm going to start with something that people probably have noticed but haven't asked you. What's up with the green tie?
I love the question.
And the bobblehead.
It's a bobblehead. It's a conversation piece. People say, hey, I just got to ask you, what's up with the green tie or the color green? I see it now. I have a green saxophone now. You probably saw that too. As a speaker, as a consultant, as a mentor, as a coach, my goal is always to help people grow their life, grow their career, grow their business, grow their sales, grow their mindset, grow their brand. So when you think about the color green, when you look outside, and I've been on 5 continents, when you look outside the window, the things that are green are growing. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can look outside the window, wherever you are in the world. You go outside, the things that are green are growing. So green it's a symbol of growth. So when I speak, I don't want to just come and give a speech. I'm here committed to helping you grow. With my energy, with my intellect and knowledge, whatever capability that I have, my goal and my commitment is to help you grow your sales, your business, your mindset, your career, your brand, your leadership excellence. So green is a symbol of growth. And I make that analogy when you look out the window. It's also a way to be remembered. I talk about personal branding. And one of the things you have to focus on when you have a brand is create a unique way to be remembered. It's one of the most powerful things. You can have great skills, but if you're not remembered, you don't get to utilize those skills to make an impact. So one of the most powerful things you can do in building a personal brand is to create a way to be remembered and a unique way to be remembered. So if someone says, hey, I saw this guy, he had a lot of energy, he played the saxophone, he wore a green tie, and maybe he put on a Spider-Man mask. They say, hey, I know exactly what you're talking about. And when you do something with consistency, you create a powerful, strong brand. So I model everything I talk about and I teach. I also model it. You know, it's not just something I am sharing with you, it's something I live. But certainly it's a conversation piece. But people always ask me, hey, what's up with the green tie? So I appreciate the question.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, Kaplan, can you share with us your earliest memory of your affinity for personal branding? And in brief, how did it develop into a career leading you to this moment as a globally recognized expert in personal branding?
You know, early on, I was a kid who I loved to watch TV commercials. You know, I loved how people could just take action. You know, we watched cereal commercials and then want to go buy that cereal. You know, we watched sneaker commercials and then I wanted to wear those pair of sneakers. So I was really fascinated by the power of watching something, you know, and then experiencing something and then taking action on it. And that was early on, you know, and then through my years in schooling, you know, I always wanted to be like sharp, you know, I just wanted to, you know, I was an athlete, so I ran tracks, I was fast, you know, sharp. And I realized that there were words that I was giving myself that actually encouraged and inspired how I was showing up. You know, so I wanted to be someone who, you know, was known. So I asked a lot of questions in class and I, you know, studied hard but I felt that giving yourself a set of words to identify how you want to show up and then creating a way to create that, to shape your reputation, you know, not knowing the topic that it was called a brand, but intrinsically that's what I was building. You know, and certainly whatever I did, I wanted to do it well to a level of excellence. So, and I want to do it consistently, whether I was, you know, playing the piano or the saxophone in church, whether I was, you know, running track for my, you know, middle school or high school, you know, whether I was showing up as a friend or showing up in the classroom, whatever it was, I just wanted to do it with a level of intensity and a level of excellence, a standard, if you will. I didn't know at the time you called it a brand, but I certainly knew that I was building something and an identity in terms of who I wanted to be. So that's kind of how it started for me. I'll never forget, you know, when I was probably 12, you know, that's a long time ago. But I remember receiving an award, you know, and the reward it said like, you know, for your demonstrated excellence. And it spoke to me because it also let me know that, you know, people watch you. And they watch you and they watch how you're showing up, even at an early age. And they're going to glean words associated with you just based on their natural observation of you. So again, not knowing that all this was around building a brand, I was just hyper focused on being consistent and holding myself to a high standard. And so when I look back years now, when I flash back forward, you know, I look at the living of a brand, the having an identity, having strong values and a commitment to your work ethic. All of that has led me to this path today, you know, led me to the decisions I've made today. My motto in life has always been take a little, make it a lot. And that has really driven my work ethic and driven some of the outcomes that I've achieved in life to this point.
Take a little, make it a lot.
Yeah. And it's played out. It's played out in every single facet of my life. What I love about these podcasts is oftentimes I'm speaking, you know, I speak all around the world, you know, 70 times a year, you know, over 210 nights a year on the road. I never get to really tell the story. So these podcasts are for the listeners. You know, I love to tell the story because the story doesn't often get told. They just got to see the stage and the clips and the videos and the reels. But the story, you know, is really what creates that, you know. So my journey has always been take a little, make it a lot. You know, my parents were from, you know, immigrants from Jamaica. And, you know, I was born in Bermuda. I moved to the United States. And again, it was like, hey, they moved because of more educational opportunity, which is a common story for many, maybe even those that are listening today. Common story, move for education. Just put you in the path. They couldn't provide it, but they could put you in the path where it could be there for you to go get. And so that move for me was always about, they made a sacrifice for opportunity. And now it was me to be responsible to do something with it. So I did something with it. I went to school, got good grades, did well in that journey. Went to, great school, University of Pennsylvania. When I graduated school, again, I got in, and I was just, grateful to get in. When I left, I graduated with the top award any senior can win.
You took a little, made a lot out of it.
And made it a lot, I learned a couple of notes on the piano, I took lessons for about a year, and today I still can play, a little bit of concert, improvisational piano. I had saxophone lessons for about 2 years, played in the jazz band, kept playing. And then when I went to college, the Denzel Washington's movie, Mobray Blues, just come out. That same week, my freshman year in college, I went to the University of Pennsylvania. I went to Philadelphia on South Street. I went to a pawn shop, and for $300, which was a lot of money at the time, but I had saved from the summer, I bought my first tenor saxophone, and I bought it in time to play in the talent show the first week on campus. And the movie had just come out, so I played that song. The next day, I was on the front page of the 15,000 copy student newspaper with a caption that said "Good Start." And that's how I started my career in my freshman year. So take a little, make it a lot.
Make it a lot, yeah. But did you have on the tie at that time?
I did not have on a tie. I had a floral. I don't even know how I got away with that outfit at this time, but it was there. It was apropos for the time. But and I think I had a flat top too. I think at the time I had a flat top. But anyway, the point was, I saw an opportunity. I took a little and make it a lot. So every little opportunity, I see opportunity as opportunity.
Right.
And I don't take opportunity for granted. I think those things have really driven me in all parts of my career. So just to tell this story, I had a great corporate career, and we'll get into that. But I was asked to give a speech at NYU. And someone who knew me early on in my early part of my career after college said, "Hey, I've been watching you. You've been doing some great things. Can you give my students some advice?" And it was a class, a business marketing class. He was an adjunct professor of 14 students. And that was on February 15th, 2006, 6:30 p.m. in the evening. I will never forget that day. So I gave this talk. He said, "I'll give you 1 hour. You can talk about whatever you want. Just whatever's helped you in your career and your life. Can you give my students some advice?" Again, 14 students.
Right.
So I thought what helped me most was not just how I managed my career in terms of getting promoted in my jobs, it was how I managed my brand. So I literally put together a one-time talk for one-time use for 14 students, and I called it the 10 Ks of personal branding. And I said, here are 10. So I worked at the time in one of the big 4 accounting firms, and a 10K is a financial audit. So I said, a 10K, what if you audited yourself? What if you looked inside yourself and said, what can I do inside of me that can actually produce something greater than me? So I said, here are 10 things you should know. 10 Ks, 10 things. They all start with K. So the first K was, you got to know yourself. You can't show yourself you don't know yourself. You got to know yourself. So get in touch with who you are, what you want to be known for. Identify. How do you identify, what's inside of you? And then I said, you got to know what you want to be known for. So it's one thing to know who you are, but what do you really want to be known for? And is that consistent? And the third thing I said, you got to know how to be consistent. Because if you're going to be consistent, people have to consistently have a way to identify your excellence. Then I said, what? When you fail, you got to get up. And you got to learn from that failure. And that failure has to propel you, not stumble you. It can't keep you stuck. You got to let that failure mobilize you to new levels of learning and excellence and growth. And then I said, how you talk about yourself really does shape who you are. So you got to know how to communicate your personal brand attributes, the best of who you are. And then I said, don't wait. You got to create opportunities. Anyone in life, if you think about success, what helped me in my career is I didn't wait. I created the opportunity. Know how to create your own opportunity. Don't wait. And then I said, you got to master the art of connection. In today's world, 2 things have to happen. People have to connect excellence with you and your name. And then people also have to know that you are someone because of the way that you connected with them. So you have to build a network, build connections where people can share and be an ambassador of your brand and your excellence. And then I said, you can't be silent. I've seen so many people in their career who are really, really, really good just get passed over. They were silent. And even if you're an introvert, you can still ask the really good questions and be what I call a loud listener. But don't be silent, because if you're silent, you can be undiscovered. And then I said, you got to set expectations, not focus on limitations. So if you don't set the right expectations, you could be limited from opportunities in your life and your career. So set the expectation high of what you can, will, or have the capability to deliver. And then I said, always you got to know your why. No, why. The why, whatever's in your heart, that why, that powers why you get up in the morning and deliver excellence versus focusing on being average, is going to determine how you grow your career and how you advance in your life. And then I had this, what I call special K, and I said, you got to ask for what you want. Because if you don't ask for it, you don't even create the opportunity for it to exist. So I literally, Jacob, I said, these are what I call my 10 Ks of personal branding. I shared it with these 14 students. It was supposed to be a one-time presentation, and I was supposed to go back to work the next day. So at the end of the presentation, I'll never forget, this student walks up to me and he says, Mr. Mobray, I just want to let you know, I just have to say, and I waited till everyone laughed. He said, you changed my life. You changed my life. 4 words.
Thank you for listening to EdUp Accelerated Excellence. This episode is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EdUPXE15OFF. Check out the details in the show notes or learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
And I said, whoa, it wasn't just like, hey, good presentation. It was like, you changed my life. And the professor said to me, you don't know it, but the next day, everyone showed up differently. I've been seeing these students for the whole year. They all showed up differently, more focused. They leaned in, they were more engaged. So anyway, that 4 words, you changed my life, spoke to me. And I went home and I said, whoa, what do I do with that?
That's right.
And it changed my life, because now I felt like I was given an assignment, maybe a divine assignment, but I was given an assignment. And I felt like I had a responsibility to now help more people and maybe change more lives. Because if I could help change one person's life in that one-time presentation, maybe I can help change more people's lives. So I literally had gotten, at that same time in my career, I'd gotten a role to lead, diversity recruiting at the time, and talent development, things like that, for this particular firm. And I really had an opportunity to go out and just talk about careers and how to navigate. So I started giving this same talk, and the talk created more buzz and more buzz and more buzz. And I kept getting similar feedback. That was life-changing. So it was, again, validation that, hey, this is something that you need to keep doing. I still have my day job, but what happened was I blinked and now I'm speaking like 20, 30 times, all across the firm and other opportunities. So I'll never forget, I said, well, I want to give a leave behind. I want to give something more. So I said, let me turn this presentation into a book. I said, I think I want to turn this presentation into a book. Now, when you're working an 80-hour job, and you really have little time, the last thing you think is feasible and possible is, let me write a book.
Right.
And this is, again, way before AI. Social media was just, really starting to, unveil itself. But it's something I felt like I had to do. And if, for the listeners, and viewers, if you think about those periods of time in your life where you feel like you have to do something, if you don't do it, it will haunt you forever. It will haunt you. You know what I'm talking about? It will haunt you those moments. So I literally said to myself, I know you've got a busy life, but if you don't do this, 20 years from now, you're going to look back and think about what your life could have been, would have been, should have been, because you didn't do it. And when I stared that question in the face, I said to myself, I have to do it. So, one of the principles I talk about in my talks around the world is there's a commitment, there's a goal that people have, but there's also a commitment that you have to make to get to the result. Most people taught the language of goal. They don't talk the language of commitment.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's the tough part.
It's a tough part because that's when it really defines, who you really are. So for me, the language of goal was, hey, I want to write a book. The language of commitment said, are you willing to live on 4 hours of sleep for a year?
Oh, wow. 4 hours of sleep for a year.
For a year. That's the language of commitment. 4 hours of sleep. So because it meant, what I had to do was I had to chop up a ruler, and I said, okay, 8 to 6, you work, 6 to 7, you commute, 7 to 9 is dinner, 9 to 2, you write, 2 to 6, you sleep.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to write this book, that's what you have to do. So that's what I did.
Wow. So this is synergy. So you talked about the word excellence, which is the purpose of this podcast, accelerated excellence. This episode is around media and marketing. So you've talked about the brand, personal branding, which is personal marketing in some ways. And I want to delve into the latter part of which is education. So in educator preparation programs, aspiring or aspirant teachers are often taught about how to prepare for the job market. However, personal branding is often not a common topic of that conversation. So why would personal branding be important in this regard for folks who are thinking about going into educating, whether you are a teacher, school leader, or school counselor?
Well, the first thing is today, especially today, people meet you before they meet you.
Mm.
So you have either established a reputation, especially going into education, you've either established a reputation or a narrative that precedes you that then elevates and advances your ability to get that opportunity or to be known for the excellence that you can create for that opportunity. If you don't have a brand, you are what I call available. You're an available teacher, educator in the roster.
Mm-hmm.
But you may not be a reward. And there's a difference between being an available and being a reward. So if you're a reward to a school, to a district, to a community, to a set of constituents, students, that means that you're bringing a level of known and celebrated excellence to that opportunity. Whether it's from what you know, what you've studied, the research that you've done, the accolades that you have created, the turnaround situations that you were able to do, whatever it is, you're bringing something to the opportunity that is celebrated, which means you're bringing a brand. You have a personal brand. A personal brand will allow you to rise above just being available as an educator or an opportunity. So it's important to build a brand, not just to accelerate your ability to get hired for the opportunity or get known for the opportunity, but also to create a celebration for what you bring. Every educator brings a unique skill set or background that can literally elevate a school, an opportunity, a community, or an outcome based on who you are. So it's really important that you get in touch with what is it that you bring that is celebrated. What's the personal brand that you bring that allows someone to say, we need you, and here's why?
I really like that. I like that a lot. The idea of celebrating your uniqueness, and the value you bring to the workplace. And really for educator, really to a community.
Yes, absolutely.
So we're speaking with Kaplan Mobray, author, globally acclaimed inspirational speaker and personal brand expert. In what ways might the approach of personal branding for educators differ from personal branding for other fields? So other folks who are listening but aren't necessarily interested in education.
So if I understand the question around just how does it differ, educators versus,
At all, it may not
yeah.
differ.
Well, there's two things. I think having a personal brand, regardless of your profession, is a critical element of advancing your career.
Right.
And that's regardless of what profession. I do think that educators, there's certain professions, and I've spoken to all professions all across the world. There are certain professions where your personal brand has an even elevated level of significance.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if you're a project manager within a company, you're trying to get to the next role, maybe to be senior project manager or director, but your role is pretty much internal. You manage processes, projects, deadlines, outcomes, and the creation of new products, as an example. Your personal brand is really about growing your career. And, the things that you do around your brand help to either get promoted, or get new assignments, as an example. But when you're an educator, just as you are, for example, I think about education, I think about the medical field, if you're a doctor, I think about if you're a lawyer, or some type of service provider, that your reputation is a critical element of your impact. I'll say it again for our listeners and our viewers. Your reputation in some fields, especially education, is a critical component of your impact. So your personal brand and the vigilance that you have to place on your personal brand really matters. So that means that what people in this age of social media, as an example, where many people meet your brand through social, or they meet you in person. So, so oftentimes your personal brand is built on the images that people say, the comments that people read, the things that you post. And that becomes the initial perception that people have of you based on their story that they put together from the consummation of your feed. So in education, your reputation creates the impact. I want this person to learn from this person because of their personal brand. I want to hire this educator to our school or university or institution because of their personal brand. And it can elevate, at this institution, at this university, at this school, we have this particular decorated, celebrated teacher, educator, who comes from a school of excellence, who's bringing the school of excellence credentials to our school. If that same educator was seen in some social media post doing something questionable, or saying something questionable, or having a questionable comment that was associated with that particular educator, or even the educator, let's face it, sometimes you just want a day off. You're just, on your own time. But the judgment around what people see or saw now automatically creeps into the reputation in your profession as an educator. And now a school says, I don't want that educator associated with our school because of what we saw on their personal brand online. Even though the educator is a superb teacher, superb educator with amazing credentials, all of a sudden their personal brand, what was seen, known, heard, or challenged about them online, creeps into their ability to have an impact in their school. And now, whether it's, in the sort of elementary, our parents saying, well, I don't want the educator teaching my students, or the institutions, well, I don't want the educator, being associated with our institution because our values are not aligned based on what we saw online. So there are professions, education, where your reputation and your personal brand does immediately hinder or create an opportunity around your impact.
Yeah, so, that makes sense.
So that's, it makes sense. Doctors the same way, a word of mouth, a service provider, that doctor, has, an amazing way with these patients and has done 10,000 surgeries and they've all been excellent, as opposed to the doctor who has, reviews that are less favorable online, less credentialed online. All of a sudden, you get in this doctor, and again, people meet you before they meet you, so they try before they buy. They look you up, they check you out before they check you in. So if someone looks you up and Google's your name, or in this day and age, ChatGPT's your name, as an example, and the questions, the comments, the reviews are less favorable, it immediately impacts your ability and your reputation to create an impact.
So that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to continue with this line and think about, now we're going to draw out a bit. So we talked about the individual. So teaching is an anchor profession.
Yes.
For all others. So you talked about being a lawyer or being a doctor. Teachers are the ones that prepare those folks. So without teachers, for example, again, we wouldn't have these other fields. But data shows that individual Americans tend to be happy with the education that their children receive. However, when you draw out, there's this other narrative that says that schools are failing us, thereby fueling an expansion of privatization through issues like school choice and voucher policies. So what are your thoughts on how might the profession better elevate itself, particularly for public education, around branding perspectives? So not necessarily personal branding, but professional branding as a field.
Yeah. I work with a lot of institutions and organizations on just their own professional or business brand. And specifically, the problem with it often we're trying to solve for is, how do you build a brand for the profession? How do you build a brand for the credential and the quality of the institution, so that the institution can have a better external profile, maybe even that leading to more grants and funding, leading to better and more enrollment, and leading to just more sort of the advancement of quality for the students who are in that particular school or institution. One of the things that you can do from a brand perspective is to elevate excellence, but also elevate the level of a standard. So I always believe that your brand is defined by your standard. As schools raise their standards, even public education, as they raise their standards, meaning, every student is going to take an AI class. Now public school students have AI education, which AI is a big component of the future in terms of just how things are done, and and a key ingredient for how the world is going to continue to operate, in addition to human intellect.
Right.
So if every public school student had to leave with having knowledge of AI, you now have prepared students for the future. And elevating the standard and the brand of that particular school, institution, or school system. So, so there's some schools, as an example, that every student in the high school has to pass a swimming test. Now think about that. That's different. Some schools have that, but some schools don't. You have to pass a swimming test. Now you'd say, well, that school is preparing students with another life skill.
Right.
In addition to language and arithmetic and and math and and English, swimming. Another life skill. So when I think about raising the brand profile, especially in education, and let's take public education as an example, create ways to raise the standard, which elevates the level of quality and innovation that's brought to the school. Even if the school doesn't have the same level of funding, you can reorient programs to create a brand, to create a destination where the students know that by going to this school, they're going to get something special that elevates their future opportunity. The other thing that I think is really important, an opportunity for schools and institutions in building a brand, is take the mundane and make it special. I'm going to say that again. Take the mundane and make it special. So an example of this is, I would always talk to leaders about changing the way that they see their natural environment. So instead of a hall room, a ballroom in a conference center, or a hall space, in a school, this is now the octagon of opportunity. So every student who enters this room on the Monday meeting day, on Monday, all school meeting, you're entering the octagon of opportunity. And it just, all we did is, you're entering the hallway of hope. This is the
right.
Take a hallway, that literally is in, between first and second grade in your school. It's just a hallway. But you actually just decorate the hallway, just extra paint. And you call it the hallway of hope. And all of a sudden, students are now walking and they're like, hey, I'm walking down the hallway of hope. It's the same hallway, but now you've given them a way to brand the destination of something that they took for granted or was mundane.
Kaplan, thank you for that. You have spoken across 5 different continents.
Yeah.
You have 2 left in your goal. What are those 2?
Antarctica and Africa, believe it or not. Yeah.
We're dreaming out loud right now, Antarctica and Africa. Yeah. And what can the Add Up Accelerated Excellence community expect from you in the future, or look out for from you in the future, and how might we connect with you?
So first thing, I always, in my talk, I always put the Spider-Man mask on because you have to be your own hero. Every single day, you are your own hero when you build a brand. You build a brand for a reason. It's to become known for the excellence that you deliver, to be that superhero that literally saves the day.
Right.
I believe one of the greatest challenges that people face today is actually their mental health. And it connects to their brand because oftentimes, you have the intention to be excellent, but the mental health challenges that people face in being mentally tough can erode someone's brand, can erode someone's performance, can erode someone's excellence. So I'm really excited and passionate about this new project I'm working on. It's a new book and a new project around this concept called green. And it's called the Green Method. And it's really helping people to understand how to move through life and continue growing, even in the midst of unfavorable, unexpected, or uncertain circumstances. And I believe that people have to be grateful. You have to understand a level of resilience that you have. You have to keep yourself in the positive mindset that empowers your perspective. You've got to hold yourself to the high standard, even regardless of what you're facing. And you got to hold on to a non-negotiable, in your life that grounds you, that centers you, that keeps you committed to moving forward. And when you can embrace that process, you can continue to keep growing. So the concept is called Green, the book and the new opportunity, the Green Method. But I'm really excited about helping people to really tackle performance excellence in the concept of tackling their mental health, their mental resilience, their mental stability. And I believe that when people can master that, they can always, hold on to the commitment of excellence in their brand. And they can be ready to save the day when something happens because they can already prepare for the unexpected, the uncertain, the unfavorable, the unsolicited, to keep going. It's helped me in my life to just really always keep going. When something happens, what are you grateful for? And 3 practices that I really advocate if you're listening or viewing this, when you get up in the morning, give yourself an identity. Who am I today? Who are you today? And the second is ask yourself, what am I grateful for? What are you grateful for? And third is, what are you looking forward to? What's that aspiration that you have that keeps you hooked on excellence, keeps you hooked on growth, keeps you looking forward, looking up, looking to deliver more? Because in life, the ability to deliver more is a choice. Excellence will always be a choice. And so I'm really excited about that project that's coming up. People can find me on all social media through my first and last name, Kaplan Mobray. My website is kaplanmobray.com. But through any channel that people can access me or information about me, my commitment is to help you grow and to help you keep going, to build a strong, powerful brand, and to hold yourself to a high level of excellence.
So we love it. And the Green Method, be on the lookout for that new project, this new book. And I'm sure we're going to see you on the trail because you're going
to see me on the trail. And you're going to see these, what I call green parties all around the country, all around the world. And, hopefully, you'll get to, if you're listening or view, to attend one of them. And that's where I will unveil the, full concept and this presentation on green. But I certainly would love to have those that are listening or those that are viewing to attend one of those. So stay tuned for the Green Method, this green project, the green tie in action, but most importantly, to help you to move forward in life.
Kaplan Mobray, thank you for this opportunity to learn with and from you here at Add Up Accelerated Excellence.
Awesome. It's been great. And congratulations to the viewers. I think that there's, EdUp and this Accelerated Excellence platform is going to deliver, just a great deal of education and awareness and knowledge to help you expand your capabilities, and certainly an honor to be a part of this, and would love to come back.
We receive it. Thank you. You are welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for engaging with EdUp Accelerated Excellence, a member of the EdUp Experience Network of educational podcasts. You can find this and other episodes on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Radio, and other outlets where you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow us and share within your network. To leave a comment or suggest a guest, contact us online at edupxe.com.